Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsacharuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormamritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us offer our salutations to Lord Krishna, the Supreme God of the universe, the embodiment of supreme bliss, who came to establish dharma in the universe and also punish the wicked. Let us pray to him to lead us from unreal to real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. We have been studying Bhagavad Gita chapter 5, verse number 18. Lord Krishna explains how the man of wisdom, Pandita, here Pandita means not bookworm, not book Pandit, not simply scholar. Here Pandita means Jnana Pandit. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, verse number 18. Brahmane Gavi Hastini, Shunichaiva Shvapakecha, Panditaha Samadarshinaha. Most inspiring verse it is. That's why people throng to be in the company of the man of realization. The saints, wherever they are, people go and try to be in his company. It's because that person of realization has nothing but love in his heart. He loves all the beings, no distinction between this community, that community, black and white, mixed color. All this nonsense are not there. Human body. And not only that, these saints have such tremendous love, and they love the whole universe. Why is it so? Because they see the presence of the divine in the whole universe. That's why it is said, universe with God is real, universe minus God is unreal. The whole universe is being animated by the supreme divine power of the Lord operating. And the laws are so nicely laid up. The nature follows the raw laws without any hindrance. And all the beings of the creation are under this law. But these laws are also well defined in all the most sacred scriptures, particularly Vedas, where the rishis have realized this wisdom through their constant meditation on the source of creation. Now, so here, because the wise people because of their true wisdom, they can see nothing but the self. They see their own Atman in everyone. It makes no difference to the sun whether it be reflected in the Ganga or in wine or in a small pool or in any unclean water. The same is the case with the self. No upadhi can attach to it. So the Atman, the indwelling Chaitanya, the indwelling consciousness in every one is untainted, is ever pure and ever peaceful and blissful. And all this big drama of the universe is going on just because of the impurities of the mind. How many times Lord Krishna has stressed this point in every sloka, as it were. The importance of managing your mind. Whatever may be the reason, we are present as individual entity because of the mind operating. Once a person realizes true identity, then he becomes infinite. It is like river merging in the ocean. No more individual entity. All this individuality is because of the ego, the function of the mind. So, those who are well established in wisdom, they look upon the whole universe as nothing but Atman. Once Sri Ramakrishna was watching on the Ganga. Two boatmen were quarreling each other. And Sri Ramakrishna was gazing at them. When their tempers rise high, one fellow slapped the other one. Here Sri Ramakrishna immediately cried, "Oh," like that. He felt as if he was being slapped. And the Hriday, who was attending upon Sri Ramakrishna, he came running. "What happened, uncle? What happened?" He came and literally saw the fingers of the back of the Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna explains, because at that point of time, I was looking at them as my own true self. And because of this external behavior, that gave the impression. Like that Sri Ramakrishna explains. The point is, that's why they don't hate anyone. That's a test of the saint. Because he sees everyone as himself. So, only Atman abides. Ekameva dvitiyam. No dualism there. The whole thing is universal, unified consciousness. So, though there are various forms in the creation, the wise will see the indwelling Atman in everything, and so they shower love and compassion towards all. There's some special nature of the saint, special virtue, quality, and that is that person of real wisdom is free from I-ness, capital I, I-ness, and mindness. Secondly, he is free from lust, anger, greed. The three atrocious demons were constantly bothering us. Kama, Krodha, Lobha. These three giants. We are under their grip. So long as we are under their grip, there is no hope of any real happiness and joy. So, this particular saint who has become wise in realizing the Atman, he finds his own self in everyone, and so he loves overwhelmingly. Next quality of this saint is endowed with dispassion and mercy. He speaks the truth and serves everyone. He is always meditating upon the Paramatman, the Supreme Soul. The sum total of all the souls is Paramatman. And he does not speak ill of others. He has equal vision. He sees the same Atman in everything. And because of his well-established wisdom, he is ever joyful and ever cheerful. If you see Sri Ramakrishna's face, even in photographs we can find how the Swami is ever cheerful. What to speak when he was living. He was always cheerful, always peaceful and cheerful. That's why people, when they would come and see Sri Ramakrishna, they would be knowingly or unknowingly be drawn towards him. The power of attraction was this pure quality of cheerfulness and peacefulness. And people around also, they would feel the same thing. Oh, how peace it is to be with Sri Ramakrishna. Like that they would feel. And he sings the glory of the Paramatma. He has divine knowledge. If you read Sri Ramakrishna's Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, whenever he talks, either in the beginning or at the conclusion of his talk, he would sing a song, a bhajan on Divine Mother. He is generous and ever ready to help people, speaking. Those who want to seek spirituality. And he was ever ready to share with them. So, love is his very breath. Mercy is his very nature. His heart overflows with compassion. Another most astounding quality of the saint is he returns good for evil and blesses those who curse him. He never retaliates. So the heart of a person of wisdom is a flame of love, and his whole being thirsts for the uplift of suffering humanity. A man of wisdom sees the whole world as a projection of his own Atman. He sees unity in diversity. He becomes one with the whole world. His nature is such. He is a youth amongst the youth, aged amongst the old, brave amongst the brave, a child amongst the children. He feels the pain and suffering among sufferers. Humility is tranquility, the condition of a well-disciplined soul. Of the creatures mentioned above, Brahmane, Gavi, Hastini, the highest is the Brahmin. Here Brahmin means not simply Brahmin by birth. Here Brahmin means who is tapasvi, who is spiritually regenerated, and who is highly sattvic in temperament, in whom the energy of sattva predominates. Such a person is called Brahmin. Next comes the cow. Not spiritually regenerated and rajasic, that is, in which the energy of rajas predominates. Last comes the elephant and others, which are purely tamasic, the energy of tamas predominating. So in all of them, the sages see the same. The one who is immutable in himself and quite untouched by sattva and other energies, or by the tendencies born of these energies, whether sattvic, rajasic or tamasic. And it is not a fiction. You can see the life of a saint. It is remarkable how they really show how these spiritual virtues in their day-to-day life. And there's a famous episode in the life of Saint Eknath. Probably you know that story. He was spit upon by 108 times. Whenever the Eknath would go to take bath in the river and come back, one fellow was waiting. As soon as he came back from the river after taking bath, he would spit upon him. And because he was spit upon, he again went into the river and take bath. Second time he is coming, second time he is also spitting. Third time, fourth time, 108 times he has done. Of course, that Muslim guy did not count. He was a Muslim guy who did this. He was hired upon by people who did not want Eknath's movement to flourish out of jealousy. Because Eknath was so much revered by people, some people were jealous, Out of jealousy, what people do, horrible. And it so happened, 108 times he has spit upon him and 108 times he has taken bath. Then this Muslim fellow got exhausted. Then finally, see the power of the saint. And that saint did not react, did not curse him. He was quite calm, peaceful. And this fellow finally got exhausted. He lay down, made Sastanga Pranam to the saint, held his feet firmly. Master, most dirtiest crime I have committed by spitting upon you. Please forgive me. And you know what Eknath said? What is there to forgive you? In fact, you have given me the opportunity to take 108 times bath in the river. It is most auspicious. So you have to be blessed, not to be cursed. That fellow was totally transformed. So that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Great saints of realization, they exhibit noble qualities of tolerance to an amazing degree. But ironically, we find it difficult to practice them even in small issues. Tolerance is the ability to cheerfully endure all physical travails, verbal abuse, mental torture and calamities brought in by nature without adverse physical reaction like retaliation, verbal backlash or mental resistance and so on. And there is another instance in the life of Sri Ramakrishna that's also worth seeing to it, how it is inspiring. How they show that how we should conduct our life. Not simply expressing lip sympathy. Lip sympathy is as good as no sympathy. So, instead of showing lip sympathy, just shut up your mouth and keep quiet. If you want to do it actively, otherwise keep silent. Well, this incident happened in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. Once he was going with Mathurnath on a pilgrimage to Varanasi and Vrindavan and other holy places. So on the way, they came to Bihar. There is famous Vaidyanath temple, Shiva temple, most famous, Jyotirlinga. Dvadash Jyotirlinga. Shankaracharya has made a hymn. All this most auspicious, and Vaidyanath Dham is one of the Jyotirlinga. Benares also Jyotirlinga. There he came, and he came to the temple and he had the darshan of the Lord Shiva, and he was just moving around. He was pained to see so many people, hundreds, sitting around the temple begging for food. And it so happened there was drought, there was no rain. Whatever reason, people were undergoing tremendous suffering. Particularly poor people suffer more because they don't have anything. Suffering is the only way they have to do. And Sri Ramakrishna's heart was completely moved. He cut out his mother, look, bring oil, cloth, food to every one of them. So everybody must be served sumptuously. Give them oil also to take bath. All these things must be done. Till then I won't move from here. This is my Varanasi. And Mathur Babu had to agree. He went back to Calcutta, made all arrangements, and all the people were fed. Then finally Sri Ramakrishna left, satisfied. See, that's called active sympathy. Not simply lip sympathy, active sympathy. So these are the things which we should note and follow it up in our life. Do it willingly. That's the point. So, same way, Swami Vivekananda life also we see. Heart was full of compassion. And he was feeling very painful to see Santans, they are the labor class people in Calcutta. When he saw their conditions, Swamiji wept literally. So many people are suffering. So he made arrangements to give some relief to those people. And you must know, now Ramakrishna Mission is well known for relief works. Wherever it is, whether it is East Bengal, West Bengal, whether it is in this country, that country, irrespective of that. Whenever there is calamity, they rush to help. And they do it. And do it wholeheartedly. And that ideal was given by Swami Vivekananda. Atmano mokshartham jagattithaya. If you are really seeking spiritual life, do service to humanity. Through service, you will be able to achieve that goal. So there are so many paths, and this modern age, this is the path, serving humanity. Seva yoga, by serving, you can reach God. In order to liberate yourself, Atmana mokshartham, to realize your true self, serve the humanity. That's how we see all these saints, sages. They have shown us the model. Still we don't open our eyes. We want to remain blind and grumbling all the time. But by grumbling, by closing the eyes, by weeping and crying, you can't overcome anything. Problem remains problem. It becomes more complex on the other hand. So we have to explore to solve the problems that you face in life. The more the problems become complex, the more difficult solution. That's the way it is. Ihaiva tairjitas sargo yesham samye sthitam manaha nirdosham yisamam brahma tasmat brahmanite sthitaha. Verse number 19. Those whose minds are thus set on sameness have even here overcome birth. Brahman is untainted and is the same in all. Therefore, in Brahman they rest. So, the idea is the people who practice spirituality in course of practice, they realize that they should not identify themselves with this body-mind complex. So they somehow try to detach themselves. And they are firmly convinced that it is because of the identification with body and mind we are entering into endless sufferings in life. Endless sufferings. The scriptures declare vehemently, the mind is a cause for both bondage and liberation. Maneva karanam manushyana bandha mokshayoho. One statement in the Upanishad. Mind is the cause of both liberation and bondage. But you are the master of the mind. Why do you allow the mind to bind yourself? That's the problem we are facing. The whole spirituality is meant for controlling the mind, uplifting the mind, purifying the mind, using the mind to go beyond the mind. Through the mind only you have to go. Such an excellent role it has got, mind, in our life. But for some reason or other, we have no control at all about the activities of the mind. So we behave like monkeys because the mind behaves like a monkey. Suppose you go to a mall, you see a lot of glamorous, attractive things there. One thought comes to the mind. Why not I take it away? Nobody's stealing. See, that idea of stealing came in the mind. But if you are truly a person of grit, you should resist it. No. Even if the mind says, steal it, I don't steal it. To assert that, you must have willpower. We have that willpower. We have everything we have got. We are not using them. Not using them, they have become useless. As if they are not there. As if it means nothing. What is willpower, sir? We don't understand. It's like that people complain. So, mind occupied by the consequences of pain and pleasure, due to its contact with sense objects and their allurements, that is externalized mind becomes cause of bondage. Externalized mind. Mind is hooked up in external things. Constantly hooked up. Whereas mind turned inwards through the process of concentration meditation, focusing on Atman, the indwelling Chaitanya, the conscious principle, becomes the cause of liberation from bondage. Those whose minds are well focused on their true self have truly conquered being caught by the wheel of births and deaths. So the question is, where is the location of samsara? It is in mind. Where is liberation? It's also in mind only. Because that we started in the beginning itself, in the introduction I told. Both are in the mind. Turn one way, it binds you. Turn another way, it liberates you. So, be careful about handling your mind and assert your mastership over the mind and try to do something that you can achieve. Not simply doing things which have no meaning at all in a real sense. One person used to say, he used to come and he comes regularly here, very good person. He is fond of running. Every day he runs 6 miles, 10 miles, every day he runs. Good. So far so good. Then what? Then he wants to go marathon running. Marathon. All right, then once or twice he did that. So now also I am doing. I asked him, what do you achieve with that? Then marathon running. Does it give any praise to you? Does it help you in any manner? Why should I over-exertion? Why? Why? Tell me, first of all. For health reason, it's not necessary. If you walk 3 miles, it's more than enough. He has no answer for that. Oh Swamiji, at least this time, please allow me, I will do from next time. She has become so deeply committed, he can't give it up. Same way of samsara. Through repeated births and deaths and births and deaths, we have become deeply committed to samsara. And we feel there is nothing but samsara. And samsara is real. God is unreal. That's the funny part. That is the message of the Kali Yuga, modern times. too difficult for them to give up samsara. They can give up anything, not samsara. Again. So, what can God do? God is there to help you, but you don't want to cooperate. That's the point. Anyway, it is like that. Mind is the cause of everything. And all the things that we do in our life, in our daily life, morning to night, they are registered in the mind. These are the facts. They have their reactions to come up. The timings are not with us. The timings are done by the mind itself. According to its own fancy, it does react. Sometimes it reacts quickly, sometimes it reacts afterwards, sometimes after death. But reaction will be there. That's the point. Reaction will be there. That's why Shri Krishna says in the Gita, Sarveshu Kaleshu Ma Manusma. Don't give up even a moment. Every moment is precious. By constantly doing, remembering, making japa, repeating my name, Shri Krishna says, you will be saved from great dangers. Repeating my name, thinking of my name, do whatever activity you are doing. Yudhyacha, he says. It's a symbolic. Whatever activity you may do, think of me and do it. Then you will be morally responsible for your actions. So you have to build up that strength. You must build up, everyone has to build up spiritual life. It's not a question of one day, hearing one Gita class talk, you become spiritual 24 hours, quick. No, it won't be like that. Ideas are to be taken to be practiced. First you must have clear concept, then application, then sincerity. Everything works very well. You will get tremendous help from so many ways. And you will be overwhelmed by such help. Really. So, the next verse is Na pragashyet priyam prapya no dvijet prapya cha priyam sirabuddhi rasabudo brahmavid brahmanistitaha. Verse number 20. Resting in Brahman, with steady intellect, undiluted, the knower of Brahman neither rejoices on obtaining what is pleasant, nor grieves on obtaining what is unpleasant. See how Sri Krishna has explained these things. And that's why the man of realization is always peaceful, because he is not shaken by external happenings at all. And Sri Ramakrishna gives an example of this in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna says, there is a farmer who lived in the countryside. He was not an ordinary one. He was a man of spirituality. Through his constant awareness of his inner reality, he had become a real jnani. But as anybody have some profession, his profession was farming. He was living by farming. He was married. After many years, he got a son. And he named the boy as Haru. Haru. He was the only son. Naturally, the parents loved the boy very dearly. And the life went on this way. And because this farmer was a man of spiritual life, all the villagers respected him. Look at this farmer, how he is peaceful and joyful and doing his job without any complaint. So one day he was working in the field when suddenly a neighbor running came to him and told him that farmer's son Haru had been attacked by cholera. So please rush back to home. The farmer was doing work in the field. Anyway, he returned. He came back. What did he do? He did not waste a single moment. He immediately contacted the doctor and made arrangements for giving treatment to the boy without wasting time. But in spite of all this treatment, best treatment he could give, that boy died. The only son, got after many years, died. So, all the family members, friends, relations, everybody was grief-stricken, weeping and crying and wailing. But this farmer, the father, how was he? He behaved as if nothing has happened. And he consoled his family and told them, why are you grieving? By grieving, can you bring back life to the boy? It is futile. So he talked philosophy. Then he quietly went back to his field and engaged himself in the farming as usual. On returning home, he found his wife weeping even more bitterly. She became so angry with her husband and she could not control herself. She lost her temper and she shouted, how heartless you are. You have not shed one tear for the child. Are you stone-hearted? She is abusing him. She does not know the greatness of this farmer who was a jnani. But then the husband, the farmer, he did not lose temper. He did not retaliate. On the other hand, he replied quietly, well, do you want to know the reason? Shall I tell you why I have not wept? Do you want to know the reason really? Look, I had a very vivid dream last night. Dream. In that dream I had become a king. I was the father of 8 sons. And I was very happy with them. Then suddenly I woke up. Now I am greatly perplexed. Should I weep for those 8 sons or for this one Haru? The father was a jnani. Therefore he realized the waking state is as unreal as the dream state. That's the conclusion. There is only one eternal substance, and that is the Atman, that is real. So this waking state appears to be real as long as when this condition. Once we get out of this condition, this waking state becomes unreal. So what is really real? That which doesn't change, which is constant, and that is Atman, the individual consciousness, Chaitanya. People say man dies. Well, after death, where does he go? Death, that means where does he go means there's somebody else other than the body. That means the entity other than the body has not died. It shows. So like that. Anyway, the wisdom of the jnani is really very uplifting. One who constantly dwells on the nature of the Atman, he becomes totally fearless. And he becomes desireless. He wants nothing. He feels complete fulfillment in the experience of his true self. That's why we find in Ramana Maharshi's life also, if you see, wonderful, most fantastic, beautiful photographs are there of Ramana Maharshi. Calm and cheerful, peaceful, blissful all the time. That's the way it is. So we shall stop at this. It will continue next Tuesday, verse number 21. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsacharudamardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Let us offer salutations to Lord Krishna, the embodiment of bliss, who came to establish dharma and punish the wicked. Let us pray to him to lead us from unreal to real, to lead us from darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.